Hey, what's good, theorists? It's your girl QB bringing you the ranking we know you've been waiting on. The Weeknd, born Abel Tesfaye, is a Canadian singer-songwriter, producer, and actor. Well, today we're just looking at his musical accomplishments, including his 4 Grammys and 20 Billboard Music Awards. Does anyone care about Billboard Awards though? Also, we're looking to see if we can spot when he made that transition from R&B, alternative R&B, to pop. Make no mistake, he's moving records like a pop artist. With all that out of the way, make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the like button if you're enjoying the content. We mean it. Help give CT a little more reach by sharing the video and hit that super thanks button to keep the rankings rolling in. All right, let's get to it. Number 5, Kissland. Failing to capitalize on the momentum he had built with his acclaimed trilogy of mixtapes, Weeknd's debut secures a spot no album wants to find itself in. Selling 95,000 on his way to a number 2 debut, Kissland has all the telltale signs of an artist vying for creative control while being stifled by label pressures. He would continue to use his unique falsetto delivery to strengthen a growing fan base, yet the material he was putting out just served to shroud Tesfaye in mystery, rather than combine his storytelling and imagery to establish what makes his artistry so unique. Coming in at 10 tracks and 55 minutes, both will be career lows until Dawn FM's 52-minute runtime. Dare we say, concise albums haven't been a trademark of his craft. Live For It with former OVO EXO running mate Drizzy, Adaptation, and Kissland meet in the middle to provide vintage Abel vibes while giving audiences a glimpse of what to expect on Beauty Behind the Madness. That's all we can say in terms of positive takeaways. The remainder of this project isn't bad, just ordinary. We're still looking for the cohesion of an After Hours, the impact of a Beauty Behind the Madness, or versatility of a Starboy. So we get that Kissland is this imaginary world that's intended to represent his touring experience thus far in his career, but when he describes it as this environment embodying honest fear of the unknown, we don't hear it. Rather, an inspiration from John Carpenter and Ridley Scott, the former of whom would lend his movie title to a song of the same name on After Hours, we hear M. Night Shyamalan, a very intriguing concept that underperformed largely due to poor execution. That CT movie channel is manifesting itself. Obviously, we would never hold the same magnifying glass to an artist's debut that we would to their magnum opus, but some growing pains are to be expected. We just can't fully understand how this flourish of creativity manifested so abruptly on following projects. His turnaround from moody R&B, threading the needle towards the alternative pop, to then conceptualizing radio stations between life and love has to be documented. We see him getting his flowers in the same vein as Tyler, the Creator, or Childish Gambino do in terms of reinvention, but we think even at the offset of their respective careers, Abel was always working within his margins better. Basically, he didn't need to come from so far behind, and the lead he has on his competition is still so insurmountable, we can't believe they're playing the same game. Number 4, Starboy. Probably the hardest album to rank on this list, Tesfaye's 2016 drop bordered between first steps and a full sprint. Starboy as an experience can be a bit disorienting. Party Monster sounds like the natural evolution of the sound he employed so heavily on Beauty Behind the Madness, before immediately falling down the rabbit hole of False Alarm. Almost like he lured listeners in with the promise of slight, inconspicuous changes before revealing a complete redesign. The title track collaboration with Daft Punk will become Abel's third to go number 1 before the remix to Die For You with Ariana Grande followed suit. We were too busy with the sonic variety of songs like Sidewalks, True Colors, and Attention to even check for the Ariana remix, but we're on it. Locking down another Grammy win for Best Urban Contemporary Album, this would be the last of his solo works to be nominated before his controversial snub and falling out with the Academy. While the album would still enjoy mostly positive reviews, on paper, it was regarded much closer to Kissland than it was to Beauty Behind the Madness. When the critics don't know what to say because you stepped so far outside your box, you know you're doing something right. Production from Doc McKinney, one of the minds behind House of Balloons, would play an integral role in his album's darker, more alternative pop sound. While Ben Billions, Metro, and Max Martin would incorporate more up-tempo pop-inspired riffs than undertones of hip-hop drums. Did you know that Ali Shaheed Muhammad, 1/4 of the iconic rap group A Tribe Called Quest, would even notch a producer credit on the K-Dot assisted Sidewalks? The videos for Starboy and I Feel It Coming would go on to combine for nearly 3.5 billion views. A lot of people were checking for Daft Punk in the mid to late 2010s. You just had to be there. All jokes aside, we're not sure what's more impressive, the number we just read or the fact that he has 3 other videos north of 1 billion views. If we're being honest, while we want to move this album a spot or 2 higher due to its impact and creative pockets, songs like Secrets, 6 Feet Under, and Love to Lay just fall flat while sounding uninspired. To promote the album leading up to its Thanksgiving rollout, Abel would release a 12-minute short film featuring a compilation of essentials from the project, asserting Starboy as his first distinguishable album rollout, a feat he would soon take to new dramatic and conceptual heights. Falling short more so from a limited and short-sighted pop-influenced sound, Starboy's uncanny artistic turnaround would probably earn it a top 3 position in a weaker catalog. Number 3, Beauty Behind the Madness. If we asked you what Abel's most impactful album was, 3 answers would have legitimate arguments. Only one of those doubles as his breakthrough LP though. 2015's Beauty Behind the Madness wasn't just his first to top the Billboard 200, its 5 supporting singles saw the Canadian crooner quickly cross over into superstar status. Both The Hills and Can't Feel My Face would be etched in the Coke Anthem Hall of Fame, but when we saw the success of Earned It, the lead single from the 50 Shades of Grey soundtrack, we knew even the sky couldn't limit this singer's potential. That being said, the margin between number 2 and number 3 is thinner than a menu from your neighborhood pizza spot that keeps ending up up in the door handle. Released to strong critical reception, the album's 7 nominations would account for 2 of his 4 Grammy wins. Detailing how the success of his first 2 commercial efforts affected his music moving forward, Weeknd spoke about the claustrophobia that listeners might have felt, stating the songs felt continuous and limited because his worldview hadn't expanded past Toronto. Following the success of Kissland, our boy was doing soundtracks and broadening his horizons, giving us his first real attempt at stepping out of his comfort zone. That experimentation would be moody, sensual, and self-destructive all in one. Working with Labyrinth, Ed Sheeran, and Lana Del Rey, the tone isn't as upbeat as it looks on paper. Going into our initial ranking, before we really became acquainted with his discography, Tell Your Friends was the entirety of his artistry to us. Obviously, we were sleeping, but his music up to that point hadn't been notably creative. Can you blame us? While we still maintain it's the best song on the project, the heights we come to appreciate would quickly move his sophomore studio album further down the list. Cuts like Often, In the Night, and Angel all considerably aged the project, while songs like Earned It and Dark Times seem to be playing a game of chicken, with neither surrendering their spot on the final cut. We would have stuck with Dark Times and kept Earn It strictly on the soundtrack, but that's just us. We gotta give him his props. One skill Weeknd has mastered better than any other pop star in the game is his ability to completely adapt to a new sound. We're talking top to bottom. The shifting soundscape employed on albums like Starboy and After Hours would only be present after Beauty Behind the Madness, making this album a blind spot in Abel's artistic evolution, the marker between his exploration and establishment of an identity. The album also takes place on a much smaller scale than his successive projects. Well, look at it this way. The more grounded concepts and relatively conventional sound help a song like Tell Your Friends shine brighter as a top-tier B-side throughout this catalog. Just gotta put it into perspective sometime. Before we get to the top 2, did you guys check out Abel's project on HBO, The Idol? Was it really as bad as people say?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure.
Fucking catch you looking at it. I'll fucking drag you down Rodeo while your fucking ass just fucking stomp you. I'll fucking curb stomp you.
I'm sorry.
I'll fucking curb stomp you.
I'm sorry, I don't,
Also, did you check out the soundtrack? It's got some heat on it. Number 2, Dawn FM, a dystopian radio station hosted by Jim Carrey. Undeniable influences from the likes of Michael Jackson and Daft Punk, even features from Tucci and Tyler, or should we call him Baudelaire? We're convinced Abel was on a psychedelic high like no other when he breathed life into these seemingly unconnected plot points, even interweaving a story by MJ's longtime producer and living legend Quincy Jones. We see what you did, transitioning into Out of Time to highlight the fragile and unpredictable nature of life and love. Now that we're thinking about it, do you think Testbait's decision to have Jim Carrey narrating the album could be related to Carrey's role in The Truman Show? It could be a stretch, but a lot of his music, the After Hours and Dawn FM material in particular, deal with isolationism and paranoia. Kinda like you're always being watched. Let us know if we're reaching down in the comments. If it is related though, could that be a hint at what the final installment would be pointing towards? With this project being a continuation of After Hours, really took shape around Starboy. Thematically, not necessarily through similar characters. Nailing the intended purgatorial nature of Dawn FM, the album's sound and subject material are both contradictory and complementary. To really understand what we're talking about, check out the video for Out of Time with Squid Game star Hoyon. Yeah, this one had us scratching our heads to process too. With his blend of techno disco elements, Dawn FM sets the pace better than any of his other projects. The downside to that is production that some listeners could find lifeless, keyword production. Abel still brings his own flair to a lot of these tracks, but the uniformity that this 80s sound brings makes it difficult for a lot of these songs to stand out on their own. Case in point, Best Friends. We're sure that song would have been incredibly impactful on an album like Starboy, maybe even After Hours, but here it feels like an extraneous interruption between Here We Go Again and Is There Someone Else, some of the album's best material. That change in direction did, however, bless us with a chance to hear Wayne over pop production straight out of the 80s, so there's that. The up-tempo production allows Abel to covertly deliver some of his most vulnerable moments to date, not to mention Out of Time will forever be a staple on the karaoke playlist. Honestly, Gasoline and Best Friends are the only speed bumps on an otherwise smooth ride. Kind of like those commercials you can't skip. What's that? 2 skips? But who's counting? Number 1, After Hours. You know the true test of a quality project, your faith in the shuffle button. We wholeheartedly believe you could hit the shuffle 14 times and get 14 different bangers. Honestly, from the album's rollout and concept to its quality and impact, Abel really outdid himself. He was doing live performances, shooting music videos, showing up in public places, all with this elaborate makeup and red suit combination, fully embodying the role of a Hollywood star who's been driven to the brink of insanity. Definitely one of the stronger examples of the impact that a good rollout can have. From the announcement of the album to his current After Hours Till Dawn tour, you could tell he put his all into the project. We had seen him dominate Billboard for the entirety of the 2010s, competing with acts like Drake, Taylor Swift, and Beyonce as arguably the biggest artists of the decade. While we respected the commercial achievements, it almost seemed like overkill. You know, when you start to think, they really can't be that good, right? This album gave us a retro retroactive appreciation for his earlier projects because his growth was so evident that we had to step back and see the elements he incorporated from his earlier albums while still reinventing himself as an artist and musician. Supported by 4 singles, including 3 to top the charts, After Hours' psychedelic aesthetic would draw inspiration from the likes of Casino, Joker, and Uncut Gems, as well as getting its title from the 1985 Scorsese film of the same name. The album would go on to break the record for the most global pre-ads in Apple Music history, with over 1 million users adding it to their libraries in anticipation. Becoming his 3rd consecutive chart topper on arrival, all 14 of the album's songs would land on the Hot 100. Of the 444,000 units he moved in his first week debut, 275K would be pure album sales. Impressive. He would even top the charts for a month straight, eventually finishing as the 4th best-selling album of 2020. With the album's cinematic tone and nature, we're not sure if we should give him an Oscar or a Grammy. Maybe both. Actually, hold that thought. Might have spoken too soon. Despite the global success of the album, Abel would fail to receive any Grammy nominations for the project. That's actually mind-blowing to have such a massive critical and commercially successful effort get so little love from the committee. He would go on to call the Grammys corrupt. If you heard Snow Child and thought this man shouldn't walk away with some hardware, we get suspicious too. He even went as far as to say that the snub wouldn't make him feel that the 3 Grammys he had already won became worthless and that he would no longer be submitting anything for consideration. If our clear-cut best body of work didn't get any love, we surely share those same sentiments. Escape from LA, Hardest to Love, and Scared to Live sonically differ so much, yet all still harp on Tesfaye's pervasive thoughts of isolation and escapism. Ironically, the album is centered around the need to get away from the media circus that is LA, while his controversial abandonment at the hands of the media critics made that reality more likely than ever. Real quick, you ever have that moment where you realize that you're living under a rock? We didn't realize until we just checked the credits that Tesfaye enlisted Metro's help on joints like Escape from LA, Heartless, and Until I Bleed Out. The rabbit hole just keeps getting deeper. We haven't tapped in with that short film yet, but apparently continues the storyline told on Heartless and Blinding Lights. Matter of fact, we're about to check that out right now. Same way you should check out some of these other rankings to your right. How many times we gotta say it? Hit that like button. You know we only bringing the finest content to your screens and devices. Decide if you will. Super thanks and subscribe. QB signing off for CT. I'll see you next time.